So the NFL Combine is in full swing, filled with reports left and right from NFL insiders. Well, one story involving two great quarterbacks, quote-unquote, accidentally running into each other at a ski resort allegedly caused an altercation between two insiders at a coffee shop, which is sad, yet at the same time, hilarious. So I've got to talk about that, several players allowed to seek out trades, potential NFL rule changes incoming, and more right after. First up, for the third year in a row, the NFLPA has released its annual team report cards with nearly 1,700 players around the league participating in the anonymous survey this past season. That's 77% of the players in the NFL, or roughly, again, this is just an average, but about 50 players per team. So a fairly well-represented number in this survey. Players voted on 11 different categories this go-round, and the NFLPA's goal, as it has been all 3 years, is to elevate standards for players and their families by improving their daily experience. Well, clearly it's having an impact because 114 areas received an A- or higher this past season, which is a 41% increase from last year. I don't have time to go through all 32 teams. You can check out the full report in the description down below, but there are some interesting nuggets worth talking about. First, the Dolphins and Vikings finished first and second in overall voting for the second consecutive season. Miami absolutely cleaned up in this survey. They had the highest graded owner, team travel, strength coaches, weight room, training staff, training room, and food/dining area. They literally finished first place in 7 of the 11 possible categories. I mean, shoot, getting to live in Miami, nice weather, beaches, and no state income tax would make most players pretty freaking happy. As far as the rest of the categories, the Vikings finished with the highest graded treatment of facilities as well as locker room. The Raiders had the highest grade for nutritionist/dietitian, and Dan Quinn was given the highest grade of any coach. As far as who did the worst, the Arizona Cardinals finished dead last in their voting, with only their head coach, Jonathan Gannon, receiving a grade over a B. Then I just thought this was funny, but the Bengals ranked dead last in terms of treatment of facilities, food/dining area, and nutritionist/dietitian. They really don't want their players eating well, it seems like. So they are only one of 3 teams that don't offer daycare for players' families during home games, and one of 10 that doesn't offer a family room, but the only team in the entire league that doesn't have one of either. They're then one of 2 teams that don't provide all 3 meals a day, which for a multi-billion-dollar business is kind of sad. Then check this out. According to the report, Bengals players feel there is little to no effort put forth when it comes to players' families, and one player even said the treatment of families is, quote, almost disrespectful. I mean, maybe their defense took personal offense to this past season and just literally decided not to play. Jokes aside, the NFLPA aren't the only ones trying to make improvements out here. The NFL themselves are mulling over a few potential rule changes that we could see as soon as next season. Mike Garafolo reported that the league is planning on using an electronic system to measure first downs this upcoming season. I guess the chain gang will still be present on the sidelines as a backup in case of a malfunction or some sort of an error, but the new electronic way will be used as the primary system. The league actually tested this during the entire 2024 preseason and regular season in the background, so they've got a year under their belt to work out some kinks already. Basically, the tracking system notifies the refs instantly if a first down was reached, although the technology doesn't actually track the ball. To be clear, the refs still need to spot it, but Replay Assist can confirm the accuracy of the placement. It's also worth noting that this tech requires additional cameras in every stadium. Each of them will be equipped with a total of 32 in order to provide the most accurate spot possible. It's long overdue, honestly. There is way too much riding on these games for them to come down to a potential human error by either a referee or a chain gang. We could have maybe avoided the outrage of everyone saying Josh Allen wasn't short on the 4th down in the AFC Championship game had this been in place last year, but I digress. That's not all, though, because Tom Pelissero revealed that the NFL is considering expanding replay assist for several fouls in 2025. The caveat here, though, is the foul has to be called on the field. They can't review something that wasn't called and change it to a penalty, even if the missed call was egregious and very obvious. One example of this is the missed face mask call on Sam Darnold late in the 4th quarter against the Rams last season. They didn't call it, so replay assist couldn't have helped with this either way, which kind of sucks. So it's not perfect, but it's definitely better, a step in the right direction. Again, better than nothing, and hopefully leads to some more accurate officiating moving forward. The next rule change being considered is the current regular season overtime rules. They're going to consider adopting the playoff overtime rules for the entire season, which allows both teams a guaranteed possession no matter what happens on the opening drive of overtime. The reasoning for this, according to them, is there was an uptick in number of victories for teams that received the opening kickoff in overtime. I'm honestly fine with this. Give both teams a chance to score a touchdown on their opening drive, and if they do that, the next person that scores wins. It should make overtime a little bit more exciting in my opinion. So there's a few rule changes being considered, with maybe more on the way, but make sure to let me know which of these you love and hate in the comments down below. Now let's get to the story of the day, or technically yesterday. This story doesn't even involve a coach, a player, at least not directly, or anybody involved with an actual NFL team. Instead, it featured two of the game's biggest insiders. If you want to consider Jordan Schultz, the NFL insider of Fox Sports, one of the biggest in the game. I mean, we know Ian Rapoport, the NFL insider for NFL Network, is definitely one of the biggest in the game. So it involved these two guys. And before I get into what exactly happened or allegedly happened at a freaking Starbucks of all places, I need to give you the why behind it all first. On Wednesday afternoon, Jordan Schultz posted this on X saying, sources, Raiders minority owner Tom Brady recently hosted Rams quarterback Matt Stafford at his home in Montana, where they spent time together and went skiing. Brady has been actively trying to convince Stafford to join the Raiders, and discussions are ongoing. Several teams are interested in Stafford if the Rams decide to move him, with Las Vegas believed to be the most aggressive suitor. So that was definitely a bit of a bomb. I mean, we all know the Rams have allowed Stafford to gauge his value and speak with other teams regarding a trade, but this was the first big report we've gotten since then. Well, 20 minutes or so after this was posted, Ian Rapoport made it seem like Schultz's report wasn't exactly how things went down. Ian claimed they ran into each other at a ski resort in Montana, per his sources. The meeting was apparently unplanned, was not extensive, with Ian adding that Brady wasn't hosting or recruiting Stafford despite reports saying that. So in response to that, Jordan Schultz doubled down by firing back, if you really think Tom Brady and Matt Stafford just happened to run into each other at a ski resort in Montana of all places at the exact same time, I've got a bridge to sell you. They were together over the weekend. It happened. Multiple teams are interested in Stafford, and Brady has been leading the charge to get him to the Raiders if the Rams decide to trade him. Tom Pelissero even got involved a bit when he said that he reached out to Tom Brady's longtime agent, and he told Pelissero, quote, I know that reporters sometimes make mistakes in their haste, but this story is inaccurate. Then Ian Rapoport quote tweeted that post from Tom Pelissero and Brady's agent and added this: Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford, like many other high-profile people, both own houses in the same ski community. Okay, so let's just look at this a bit from both angles. My natural instinct is to call BS on this being random. You mean to tell me that both of these guys happen to walk into the ski resort and randomly bump into each other after both deciding to visit their house in Montana? Let's be honest, both of these guys own multiple houses, so the odds of this happening is extremely rare. I don't care if both of these houses belong to the same ski resort community. The chances of that happening is crazy. Now, some people are obviously crying out, tampering. This is tampering. You cannot do that. But Vincent Bonsignore, I don't know, he covers the Raiders and was told this: there is no issue here in regards to tampering. The Rams gave the player and his agent permission to speak to the Raiders. Tom Brady is a minority owner of the Raiders, and there you go. Supposedly this is not tampering. This wasn't planned. It was all an accident, okay? And that's honestly the only thing that can make me believe maybe this was a coincidence. If they're not breaking the rules, why would you try to hide it? I don't know. This whole thing is incredibly weird. Definitely let me know your thoughts on this meeting in the comments down below. Do you think it was accidental or actually accidental? With that context being given, this is where the story kind of goes ape though, because after all this happened, Eric Sollenberger, or he's better known on Twitter/X, whatever you want to freaking call it, PFT commentator, he said this later that day: I'm hearing there was literally a serious big-time media confrontation at Starbucks between two NFL news breakers. He said NFL security had been asked to step in and that there would be more to come. Well, it actually seems like he was right about this, because later that night, Mike Florio reported that Jordan Schultz verbally accosted, or, if you're not that smart like lawyer Florio, approached and addressed Ian Rapoport in a bold and or aggressive manner at a Starbucks in Indianapolis. Everyone's there for the combine, so it makes sense why they would both randomly accidentally be at a Starbucks in Indianapolis, okay? That was not accidental. unlike the Tom Brady and Matt Stafford situation. Anyway, apparently Schultz approached Ian Rapoport while he was talking to an agent and told him, "We need to talk." Rapoport said, "We don't need to talk." Then Schultz reportedly made some accusations about Rapoport, claiming that Ian's claims were unfounded. And this is all reported by Florio, by the way, who wasn't actually there. But he was told that Schultz told Ian, quote, "If you have anything to say to me, say it to my face. If this continues, we're gonna have a problem." Rapoport then asked Schultz to step back and even called security over, at least according to Schultz in a text that he sent to Mike Florio. But that was pretty much the gist of it. Jordan Schultz said he didn't even curse or remember cursing, and nothing escalated past that. However, I need to see an insider's charity boxing match set up after this as soon as humanly possible. Please and thank you. We would all pay to watch this go down. The craziest part of all about this story, by the way, is the fact that it all went down at a Starbucks. It's incredibly ironic because Jordan Schultz's dad was a longtime former CEO of Starbucks. And speaking of dispelling fake news or potential fake news, I talked about this earlier on in the week, but a local radio host in Denver reported that Rob Gronkowski was seriously considering coming out of retirement to play for the Denver Broncos. Well, Mr. Shut That Ish Down himself, Ian Rapoport, said right away that it was complete nonsense. And then none other than Mr. Do You Know Who My Dad Is? Jordan Schultz said that he reached out to Gronk about a so-called comeback. Gronk said people must know something about him that he himself doesn't, and that while he wished he still had those powers, it's time to relax a little, quote, "No football." Now let's get back to when reporters actually reported and not resorted to violence. You like that? Several players found themselves in trade talks over the past couple of days, with the first notable one being Packers cornerback Jaire Alexander. The Packers have had, quote, trade conversations centered around Jaire, and while they are open to moving him for the right price, it'll be interesting to see what that price ends up being, because while Jaire has been one of the best corners in the game for a few years now and is still just 28 years old, he has a pretty extensive injury history and has missed 34 games in the past 4 seasons alone. Plus, he's signed through the next 2 seasons with cap hits over $25 million each, though there is technically an out from the 2025 season on, and at least when you look at his contract and how it's structured the last couple of years here, it is very tradable. The Packers could eat some of his salary to make a trade more palatable for another team, but even still, there's going to be some risk involved for whoever does make that move. Whoever does, though, they're going to get a dog if he can stay healthy. The next player who could soon be on the move is Titans edge rusher Harold Landry III. The Titans have given him permission to seek a trade ahead of free agency, which begins on March 10th. Landry has been a Titan for his entire 7-year career and has been a solid pass rusher throughout. He did miss all of 2022 with a torn ACL, but played all 17 games in 2021, all 17 in 2023 and 2024, and had a combined 31.5 sacks in those 3 seasons. That's some very solid numbers to say the least, and he could absolutely be a great addition for a team in need of some pass rush help. He still has 2 years and $35 million remaining on his contract, which honestly isn't a bad price for a guy who's proven he can get around 10 sacks a year. News of Landry hitting the trade block has some people thinking the Titans are zeroing in on Abdul with the first overall pick. He's a defensive end out of Penn State and is the best pass rusher in the draft by far, finishing with 12 sacks in 14 games during his final year of college. Well, Abdul himself seems to think he's going number 1, as he's not been shy about declaring himself as the best player in the draft. However, things took a bit of a turn when tests at the Combine revealed that Carter had a stress reaction in his foot. That's not as bad or severe as a stress fracture. It's just pain and inflammation as opposed to an actual break. But nonetheless, it still drew some red flags. Well, the good news for Carter is that apparently after further scans on his foot, doctors told him that surgery is not advisable. So he's not going to work out or do much at the Combine, but he will be able to work out at Penn State's Pro Day on March 28th. And his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, said, quote, he couldn't be more confident that this will be a non-factor where he's drafted. Well, we'll certainly see about that. It's not even a given that if he was fully healthy, he'd go first overall. The Titans need a quarterback badly, plus Travis Hunter, I guess, could be an option as well. And then in some quick hitter news, the cap hit is officially set at $279.2 million per team for the 2025 season. And with that, teams are going to be able to make moves, spend more, while at the same time, players are also going to want more money. Speaking of money, guard Trey Smith, who was set to be one of the biggest free agents to hit the market, is not going to hit the market after all. It was reported earlier today the Chiefs will be placing the franchise tag on him. They haven't done it yet, but they will be doing so in the next couple of days. And that makes his cap hit, when this happens, it's going to be $23.4 million. However, this doesn't appear to be a tag and trade scenario like it was with L'Jarius Sneed last year, and KC is supposedly close on getting a long-term contract done with Trey Smith, and that's going to make his average around $23 million per year. That's going to reset the guard market, with Landon Dickerson being the highest paid guard at the moment at $21 million per year. KC just reset the center market a handful of months ago when they struck a long-term extension with Creed Humphrey that averaged $18 million per year. So it looks like these two, talking about Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, who are good friends, will be staying together to block for Patrick Mahomes for several more years. Speaking of the Chiefs, Travis Kelce himself did confirm today through a text to Pat McAfee that he is returning to play out the last year of his contract for the 2025 NFL season. Now all KC needs is a left tackle so Mahomes doesn't have to run for his life. And with that, I myself need to run. So I'll see y'all next time.